Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Henford-on-Bagley, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack of Sims 4 Cottage Living, and I'm going to be building a huge English family estate. So first things first, I really hope you've got yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Would also grab yourself a snack while she's there, because this week's video is... yeah, it is quite a lengthy one, but for this week's build, I finally sat down and tackled the big 64 by 64 lot in the world of Henford-on-Bagley. Now, pretty much ever since the Horse Ranch expansion pack came out, I've had it in my mind that I wanted to come into the game and in this world in particular, build just like a proper British, proper fancy, like English estate with horse stables. I also wanted it to have other elements, like I wanted there to be a swimming pool area, I wanted there to be like a big pond and stuff. I also wanted there to be like a little bit of farmland if you wanted to do a little bit of farming in the game. And I've had it in my mind since the Horse Ranch expansion pack came out, but I've always just been a little bit intimidated to actually sit down and start it. But yeah, no, this week I came into my game, I started building it, and I am just absolutely obsessed with everything about this build. I know I've said this before, but I think this is now my new favourite build that I have ever done. Like, it is just so my cup of tea, if I'm being honest. If you like the way that I decorated the inside, I tried to go for kind of like a traditional English countryside route, but with elements of like rusticness, and then also a little bit of like modern, like sprinkled in, not too much, just a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I tried to keep it traditional, but no, it's just so my cup of tea. It's like my dream house, if you want to put it that way. And yeah, I'm so happy with it, and I'm just so proud of it as well. And so yeah, I really hope you like it. But anyway, moving on from that and getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself, and also what I'm doing right now. So the house itself ends up having 5 bedrooms and I believe 4.5 bathrooms. If that's wrong, it'll be in the description box down below. But like I've already said, it is also built on a 64 by 64 lot, which this is the biggest lot that we've got in the game. And for the actual build, like the actual house itself, I feel like it's not too big of a house, because the thing is, I wanted this build to be, you know, extravagant. Like, I wanted your Sims to pull up, say for example if they've got a delivery or if their mates come around, I wanted your Sims to be able to pull up here and be like, Jesus, like these people in a different tax bracket. But I didn't want the actual house to be massive, because I'm thinking for gameplay, if I'm building on a 64 by 64 lot and I make the house as big as the lot guidelines, it's going to take your Sims like a week to get around it. And so yeah, the actual build itself, like the actual living quarters, it's a big house, don't get me wrong. I mean, I feel like if you're maybe like a legacy player, you're someone that likes to play with multiple different generations, it's a decent sized house for that. But I also feel like for gameplay, it's just really easy to maneuver around. Something that I did in this build, which I'm not sure if I've ever done it in another house build before, I don't think I have, but I made it so it's got 2 front doors, which might sound weird, but hear me out. Basically, when I was building this, I was looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest. I'll find it for you and I'll pop up on the screen. I tried my best to recreate it as accurately as what I could, but of course, in The Sims 4, there is always going to be some sort of limitations. But there's one particular area in this build which it's got a tree covering it. I'll zoom in to make it easier so you can follow along what I mean. But basically, I just felt like that was like the perfect setting to have a front door. But the thing is, near kind of like the chimney breast, I could see that there was some roof, and I assumed that there would be a front door there. And so I was a little bit umming and ahhing about it, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to make it so yeah, this house actually just has 2 front doors. It makes it feel a little bit more expensive in a way. And I mean, of course, if you wanted to, you could definitely delete one of the front doors and maybe replace it with like a window or something. But I don't know, I just really love the 2 front doors because it gave it a lot more character, and also in a way it made it feel a little bit older, which might sound silly, but in my mind I'm thinking, well, what about if this house maybe used to be, back in the day, multiple different houses. You know, where I'm from, it's quite common to see a house that obviously used to have 2 front doors, but one of them has been boarded up and it's now been made into one big house. Does that make sense? I don't know, I just feel like it's a very common thing to see in the British countryside, to have a house that has kind of like a blocked up entrance, because it used to be multiple different properties, but current day it's only been made into one. Hopefully you follow along with me. But yeah, no, I just love the 2 front doors. I just think it's really lovely. But either way, as you can see, I've now moved on into the floor plan. So this floor plan I am just such a big fan of, because I feel like everything is just kind of at your fingertips, and it's all so easily accessible. You kind of walk in through the front door, either one, doesn't matter, but you walk in through the front door, and if you go towards the left hand side, you then walk past the dining room. In this house, even though I wanted it to be expensive, there is only one dining room, which I'm only saying that because in some of my more like fancy or big builds, I sometimes, if it's like a really rich family, I'll make it so they've got like a breakfast room and then also a dining room. But no, for this one, they've got a really quaint little dining room. It's lovely. It's got these big windows that kind of look out onto kind of like the manicured grass in the front. It's lovely. But yeah, you've got the dining room, and then if you keep on going like towards the back of the build, then you get into the kitchen. The kitchen is probably my dream kitchen in real life. I mean, I've already said this is probably like my dream house in real life, but the kitchen especially, I'm absolutely in love with it. I tried to go for, like a sage green kind of colour and then like a creamy kind of colour. I feel like that kind of kitchen at the moment is just so trendy, and it is just so right up my street. I just absolutely love it. But yeah, I tried my best at trying to make it into a current day trendy sage green kitchen. It's got like these cream countertops. It's got like a big breakfast like counter section or like an island in the middle. It's huge in there. But yeah, that is the kitchen, kind of located at the very back left of the build, but you can access both the front and the back of the build in the kitchen because there is multiple different doors going like out into the exterior, if you want to put it that way. But then next to the kitchen there is a little utility room. Even though it's just somewhere for your Sims to wash their clothes, even still, that room I'm just absolutely obsessed with. I tried to keep like the current theme of English countryside in the utility room. I was looking at so much Pinterest, by the way, when I was in this build, and as I go throughout all the different rooms, I'll show you like all the different inspiration pictures. But yeah, I made it so there's a washing machine and a tumble dryer, but then I also tried my hand at making like a little custom dog bath in the utility room, because there is also another back door which kind of leads on from the back garden. So in my mind, your Sims, say for example it's a Sunday morning, maybe one of the parents is in the kitchen, they're making egg and soldiers or something for breakfast. I'm only saying that because that's what my family have every single Sunday morning. But anyway, maybe your Sims, one of them is making breakfast in the kitchen, the other one's just taking the dog out for a walk, but the dog's come home a little bit muddy. You don't want the dog walking through the house with like all muddy paws and stuff, and so you can kind of walk in through the utility room door, and in there, I made like a little custom dog bath, fully functional. I playtested this whole entire build, but yeah, your Sims can wash their dog in there. But also on the downstairs level, if you go back by one of the front doors, like I said, either one, doesn't matter, you can then kind of chuck a right and then you're into the lounge area. This might be a little bit hard to follow, so I'll keep this very like short and sweet because I'm still yet to give you an overview what is on this build, which I will do in a second, because I'm very much aware that I am already moving on and started creating the stable area, which I really do want to talk about. But in the lounge room, it does also look over a second back garden, which is like very manicured. It's got a swimming pool area, it's got some sun loungers, little barbecue section. Like, it's really nice out there, very nice for like family gatherings. But yeah, the lounge room kind of has these big windows that all the sunshine kind of like shines through in the morning, and yeah, it's just really cozy in there. But also in that like little downstairs section, there's another little hallway, downstairs bathroom, and then one of the bedrooms. And then on the upstairs level, it's where the rest of the bedrooms are, so the remaining 4, and then also some more bathrooms. But I feel like I explained that really cack-handed, but I promise you it is really simple. Like the floor plan is like a really simple layout, but I'm just really proud of how everything is so easily accessible. But either way, moving over and actually getting back to talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I've just started creating the horses stables. Now, like I said, ever since the horse ranch expansion pack came out, I've had it in my mind that I wanted to come into the world of Henford-on-Bagley and just build a proper British family estate. And what I mean by that, I'm not sure if you've ever watched, do you know The Crown on Netflix? About like Queen Elizabeth and also like Will and Kate. I haven't got into the Will and Kate seasons, I've only just tipped my toes into the Diana seasons. But either way, if you've ever watched The Crown, doesn't matter if you haven't, but in The Crown there is this one section where the Queen is, I sound so British, don't I? But the Queen is basically in this horse's stables, and it's kind of like this courtyard, and it's always just been in my mind. Like, it's always just stuck in my mind for some reason. And so coming into this build, I tried to recreate them same stables in similarity of kind of like the layout around it. I'm pretty sure the ones in the show are 2-story level horses stables, which look great, but I feel like in The Sims, for practicality, it doesn't really make that much sense. And so yeah, I just did 1-story stables, and in total, if you would like to, you could have up to 4 horses stay in them because there is 4 separate horse beds. But to be fair, if you really fancy, you could actually have room for 6 horses, because in one of the buildings, so each building has 2 horse beds, but in one of the buildings I didn't put any horse beds in there, and instead I decided to make it kind of like a little, I was about to say a bedroom, it's not a bedroom, but like a little house for either cows, llamas, basically any sort of farm animals. But I'll get on and talk about that when it is on the screen, because I really want to speak about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I'm currently coming in and trying to create kind of like a bridge section going up towards the house. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a little while, you might have seen me do this a few times before in the past, but I've never done it with this one particular bridge. And pretty much in the live edit menu from the Cottage Living expansion pack, we have access to so many different beautiful bridges in the game. But the thing is, where they're from the live edit menu, you can place them down into your builds, but your Sims can't walk over them. Like, they ain't got a footprint for your Sims to actually, you know, like run or walk or whatever over them. And so you can actually make them usable, and that is basically what I'm doing right now. Now, the way that you do it, and if I explain this a little bit candidly, please feel free to ask me questions, but basically what you do is you build a room, doesn't matter how big or small it is, but you build a room on like the normal ground level, and then you move up 1 level, and then you build a room above the one that you just built. That way then you've got a 2-story room. Basically, once you've got that 2-story room, you delete the room that's underneath it, and the reason why you delete the room underneath it is because then you can drag down the one that you built above it, and then that way when you drag it down, you can easily just make it into a platform for your Sims to walk over. The reason why you don't just build like a bog standard room and call it a day is because when you actually want to level it up so your Sims can walk over it, where you're building on the ground level, you'll always have to place down a foundation. It's just the way that the game works, it's just like the mechanics of the game. But if you place down a second room and delete the room that you have on the floor, when you pull that second room down, that will technically be the second story, you don't have to have a foundation. But then once it's kind of at a level that you're comfortable with, all you do is literally just get a staircase either side of it and place it so your Sims can get up and then back down it. And then, yeah, you've kind of created a bit of a bridge that then that way doesn't have to have a foundation. And then all you do is you just get the live edit bridge. The one that I've used is from the Cottage Living expansion pack, but there is so many different live edit bridges in the game now from various different packs, and then also base game as well. If you're someone that maybe only has base game, but then you just get the bridge, you place it on top of it, and then using the tool mod, I just elevated it down and got it so it was, you know, like nice and flush. And yeah, it's fully functional, by the way. If you're curious, your Sims can fully walk over that bridge, no issues whatsoever. They can walk over it, they can run over it, walk the dog over it if they fancy. Like, it is fully play tested. I've play tested this whole entire build, and I only run into one problem, but it was with kind of like the farmland area. It was to do with the animal sheds, but when I move over and I'll do it, I'll explain it there because it won't make much sense if it's not on the screen. But yeah, fully placed this whole entire build, and so if you do decide to download it, you shouldn't run into any problems. But over here, I really want to explain what I'm doing right now because this looks really bizarre, but basically you can see in the middle of this little like pond, I merged down a chicken coop. Basically, in my mind, I was thinking this was like a duck house, which sounds silly, but where I live, in my like little village, there is the local pub, and outside the local pub there is a little pond, and in the middle of it there is a tiny little house for, you know, the ducks to go to sleep of a night time or the daytime. I don't know if they're nocturnal or not, but it's basically somewhere for the ducks to have some sort of shelter, and I always just think it's really cute. And so coming into this build, yeah, I basically just got a chicken coop, sized it down and merged it into some terrain to make it look like a little duck house. I just thought it was a really sweet addition, so I just wanted to explain what that was. But something else that I want to mention as well before we get too far into it, if you're someone that plays on console, if you're someone that doesn't have any mods, you can still download this build off the gallery, and everything that I've done regarding the tool mod will still be the exact same. The way that the tool mod works is you can basically take in-game objects and whether it be like scale something up, scale something down, rotate something, you know, like move something over to a particular like placement. You can do all of that with in-game objects, but to actually download the build, the manipulation of the objects that I've, like, say for example, rotated or I've elevated down will still be the same. So yeah, if you was to download this build off the gallery and you're someone that plays, say for example, on Xbox, or maybe you're someone that, you know, can't have mods in your game, you can still download this build and all the different manipulations of the objects will be the same. hopefully that makes sense, but I still get questions about it every once in a while, and so yeah, I just thought I'd mention it. It will just be the exact same, it just transfers over to the gallery really nicely. But over here, as you can see, on the other side of like the big pond in this build, I wanted there to be some sort of like little gazebo area. Now initially I wanted to use this gazebo, which the one over here, this is actually from the Growing Together expansion pack, but weirdly enough you can actually find it in the world of Henford-on-Bagley in kind of like the environment. It's a bit of a funny one, this gazebo, because in the live edit menu from Cottage Living, you see the ivy that I've placed around the actual gazebo. You can find the ivy in the live edit menu, but the actual gazebo object itself we don't have in the live edit menu. But luckily enough, we had just happened to get the exact same object from the Growing Together expansion pack, and so I used the one that is from Growing Together. But if you was to be in the world of Henford-on-Bagley, you could actually see that little gazebo in the environment. But I just thought it was such a lovely addition to this build, and so initially I wanted to place it over here in kind of like this manicure garden area. You can see that I'm currently coming in and trying to paint some like, you know, like them really fancy lines of like a lawnmower's just like been, I don't know how they do it, but you know, like when people have like lines in their grass, it's like really rich and fancy. I tried to do that, and initially I wanted to have that gazebo over here, but then I was actually filtering through the Adventure Awaits live edit menu, because, and if you watch my build and buy overview of that pack, you might have heard me talk about it, but from the Adventure Awaits expansion pack, weirdly, we got a red post box. You know, like a classic, like British red post box. We got one from Adventure Awaits, and I remember I saw it and I was thinking, well, hang on, why didn't we get that with Cottage Living? Either way, I popped it at the front of the build because I just thought that was just so like British. But then when I was filtering through the live edit menu for Adventure Awaits, I then found this second gazebo, and so I placed down a wooden one over here, and then the one with the ivy I just actually swapped to be on the other side of the lot. The ivy covered gazebo kind of works similar to the live edit bridge that I placed down. So when you actually place it down into, say for example, your Sims garden, they can't by default go in there because there's no footprint for it. But I don't know if you would have noticed, when I was doing that initial area before I swapped it over to the opposite side of the garden, I basically came in and just made like a little small circle platform, and then it was only like one platform click up, and then I merged it into the gazebo, and then that way your Sims can actually go into the gazebo. I placed it down on the other side, but then I completely cut out all the landscaping around it just because, to be honest, I had a lot of footage for this build. I had just under 13 hours worth of footage for just this build, and so I did decide to cut out some landscaping, just some that I just felt like was a bit repetitive. But I did cut out the landscaping area around the gazebo, but inside of the gazebo I did place down a nice little chess table. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved back to the horses like stable courtyard. So over here I'm actually trying to make some plant like pots or like planted rose bushes that look like some custom content that I've got in the game, which sounds really silly, but pretty much if you've ever seen any of my CC builds before in the past, you might be familiar with what I'm on about. But basically I've got this one custom content pack which is called the Organic Set by Felix Andre and Hey Harry, and in that CC pack it was kind of like a Cottage Living add-on, if you want to put it that way. And basically the creators took this like really beautiful pink rose bush, which initially is from the Cottage Living live edit menu, and they placed it into some sort of like tin bucket situation. It's beautiful. In all of my CC builds I always use it because it's like my favourite plant ever. But when I was doing this little courtyard bit, I was really wanting to use it, but this whole entire build is no CC, but I was really inspired by the custom content, and so I thought, well, do you know what? They actually just took this rose bush, which is from Cottage Living, and then just placed like some sort of like tin bucket underneath it. I'm gonna see if I can do a similar thing with in-game items. And so what I did is I got this one tin bucket, which I think is from either Cottage Living debug or base game debug, either one of them. And then I basically got a little tiny plant pot, sized it down so it was around about the same size as the tin bucket, and then I basically just merged in the rose bush to make it look like, there is loads of different planted rose bushes in front of like the little stable areas. It sounds silly, but I was so proud of that just because that custom content set is one of my all-time favourites ever, and I always use that plant and I just think it's so beautiful. And so I was really happy that I was able to kind of recreate something like it in the game using like in-game objects. The actual like little stable courtyard area is quite simple, but I didn't really want to overclutter it because in my mind that's where your Sims, they would come and get their horses out of their little like what they call like paddocks or like little horsey bedroom situations. They would come get their horse out of bed basically, and then in my mind that's where they would kind of like put their saddles on and put all of their reins on and stuff like that. And for pure gameplay, I just didn't want to overpower it with like too many different decorations that might get in the way. And so yeah, I just placed down them little like tin rosebush decorations, and then I think also placed down some lights either side the archways. But I will revisit that area shortly, but currently I'm coming in and I'm focusing on the greenhouse. It's funny because I said that I would give you an overview of this house, but we're now like 20 minutes in and I still haven't given you an overview, and I feel like at this point it's a little bit silly. But yeah, there is a greenhouse section in this estate. It ends up having some garden patches in front of it, and then to the left of it, that's where we have quite a fancy like outdoor barbecue area, seating area, nice like, little gathering situation. We also have a swimming pool over there, and then to the right of it, that is where we end up having some farming bits and bobs. So you know, for your cows, for your chickens, for your llamas, whatever you fancy. But something that I wanted to mention with the greenhouse, the way that I built it, I basically got these two live edit kind of like brick wall pieces from a Cottage Living like live edit menu, and I basically put them either side of the greenhouse because initially I wanted to go down this route for it, but when I was coming in and I was doing the wallpapering and I was doing the flooring, I just did not like it. I have done this before in the past in another build, fun enough, in the world of Henford-on-Bagley, but when I did this before, I used the wall pieces in like a different rotation, so it didn't look as bizarre as what it looks right now. But when I was basically coming in and I was doing the wallpapering and the flooring, I just kept on looking at it, and this is going to be such a bizarre reference, but there's this one picture of someone running with their arms behind them. I'll find it and I'll pop it up on the screen. I kept on thinking the greenhouse looked like that, and I couldn't get it out of my mind, and so the walls don't end up being in the greenhouse. You'll notice it in the screenshots, they're completely like disappear just because I just kept on picturing this greenhouse just like running away from the garden just because of this one image of someone running with their hands behind it. It sounds so bizarre, but it was just the similarities were there with the way that these live edit walls kind of like flare out behind the building. I don't know, I didn't like it, but I like what's in front of it. And also actually the inside of this greenhouse is by far my favourite greenhouse that I have ever done. Earlier this week I actually posted a picture of the inside of this greenhouse, which I never normally do. Normally I keep my mouth shut when it comes around to my builds, and I show you what happens on like a Friday. But like I said, I think this is my new favourite build that I've ever done, and I've been so excited to show you it and just share it just because I love every single centimetre. But the inside the greenhouse is absolutely chef's kiss, but then also the outside as well. You've got plenty of different planters for loads of different fruit and vegetables, or maybe oversized crops. I also did this one thing on the section on the right hand side where I've got these kind of like little, they're almost like metal arches, and I merged them over some of the planters. In my head, different things can kind of like grow up it in terms of like vines and stuff. I did try and make it look like that with using different vines or like wisteria pieces that we got from both the Cottage Living live edit menu, but then also the Enchanted By Nature build and buy category. It wasn't exactly how I would have wanted it to be, but I mean I tried my best and I still think it looks really nice. But also them little like planter, like almost like little miniature fences that I placed around the planters. If you're curious, your Sims can still access them planters. Like I've said, fully play tested it, it's absolutely fine. If you was to use them little like debug, almost like little fence pieces around all of the planters and not leave a gap, your Sims can't gain access to them. But I don't know if you would have noticed the way that I kind of formatted them around the planters, I purposely left a gap so your Sims can get in there and actually tend to their crops and stuff. But now moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the little like farming area. So I said I've playtested this whole entire build and I only ran into one problem. It was with like the farming area. It was basically over here because I don't know if you would have noticed, but the way that I kind of formatted the cows, if you want to put it that way, I got the animal shed and then I sized it down really small and then I merged it into a bucket. I've done this many times before in previous builds and it works absolutely fine because sometimes when I'm building a farm, I don't want to use the animal shed that comes with Cottage Living because it's nice, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's just not the right aesthetic that I want to go for. And like this is a fancy estate, do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want there to be that Cottage Living kind of like rustic little shed. I wanted the farm animals to have quite a nice area to go to sleep in. And so I sized it down and I merged it into the bucket. But the only reason why it wasn't functional is because I've got 2 cows. If you download this build of the gallery and the cows transfer over, don't worry, you can delete it and maybe replace them with llamas if you fancy. But I don't know, to me, having cows in a British farm is a little bit more authentic than llamas. But saying that, actually, there's a house near me that have got alpacas in their farm, which I love an alpaca. I like their haircuts because they all... Oh, sorry, I don't know if you just heard a snore then. That was my dog behind me. But I love an alpaca because they always have like really funky haircuts. But I never know the difference between an alpaca and a llama. I know the ones near me are alpacas because my dad knows bloke, but I decided to place down some cows into the animal sheds. But if you want to delete them and replace them with llamas, then feel free to. But basically, the cow on the left-hand side kept on moving into the fence. Like, the way that I placed down the animal shed, there wasn't enough guidelines for the cows to freely roam. All I basically did is I removed the bucket and I placed down the animal sheds more in the centre of that little courtyard. And then I placed down some lumps of grass. So if you actually want to tend to the animal shed, maybe refill the feeders, or if you need to clean it out or something, if it gets a bit stinky, then basically you just zoom into the grass. And I've sized down the animal shed, so if you're just like walking about the garden, you're not going to notice it. But if you actually really zoom in, it's big enough for you to be able to click on it and to tend on it. But other than that, everything else in this build works absolutely fine. So you shouldn't run into any problems. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved over into the horses stables. So like I've already said, there is enough space for 4 horses in this house, but if you would like to and you want to have more horses, then you can definitely delete like the little cow shed situation and replace the inside of where I've placed the cows to be some more hay beds for some more horses. But to be honest with you, I feel like 4 horses is plenty in the game, because I'm not sure how much you play with horses. I dabble in it a little bit. A few of my households have them, but horses are so needy. Like, you actually need to tend to them at 24/7. You thought cats and dogs are bad in the game. Actually, not so much cats are alright. Dogs are very needy. But horses in The Sims 4, you just consistently need to give them attention and love and care, like you should. But sometimes when you're trying to play the game, it can be a little bit just annoying, to be honest with you. So I only made it so there is space for 4 horses, but you can have as many horses as you fancy. But in the little stable area, each horse paddock, or like horse house, has a feeder and then also some water. And then also outside of it, I placed down some like little Wellington boots and like little equipment for your Sims to put on before they go for a ride. And then in front of the actual stables, I completely spoke over it when I was doing it, but there is a horse training jump area, so your Sims can train their horses on the jumps. There is room, by the way, to place down the barrels if you want to get your Sims horses to do the barrels, but I don't really love the look of the barrels. It wasn't really going with the aesthetics of the build, so I only placed down the jumps. But of course, if you don't have this build, you could add them in. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the back garden, but more of like the garden. I say that, what I mean is, obviously, like, this whole back of the house is technically termed as the garden, but in my mind, this is kind of like where your Sims, if they want to maybe it's summer, they want to have a barbecue, invite their mates round, they can come out here, they can sit around the table, put something on the barbecue, maybe, have like a little chat or something. There also ends up being some sun lounges out here, and then also a swimming pool. When I actually initially placed down the swimming pool, I cut out that section because I basically ended up deleting it anyway, as you can see. And then over in this like back area, I wanted to have that manicured grass that I had in the front, just because I just think it looks so grand and just so proper and just honestly just so lovely. And so I deleted the swimming pool, redid the lines, and then when I came back in and I was trying to figure out where the swimming pool was going to be, initially when I built the swimming pool, which I cut out, I tried to do like a little bit of like a curvy section on the swimming pool, but this little section just really wasn't big enough, and I didn't want to make it like squeezed in, like it just wasn't gonna go with the rest of the building. So I just decided to do like a bog standard rectangle swimming pool. But in a second, I did something which I was so happy with this idea, and it's basically, you can see the way that I've kind of led the path up to the swimming pool and the sun lounges. I wanted there to be some sort of like fence, some sort of trim to kind of separate the grass from this pathway, because in my mind you would have some sort of like trim like separating the two. And so what I did is, them fence pieces that I used at the very front of the build by the bridge, I didn't point them out, but you'll see I start placing them down. Basically what I did is I got multiple of them, sized each one of them down, and then carefully like moved them next to each other. There is no clip in it, so don't worry about that, but I moved each one of them next to each other, and then on kind of like the little corner pieces I placed placed down some bigger posts to kind of hide any sort of interference between the two different fence pieces. But once I've run around the whole entire swimming pool and I'd placed them all down, I then came in and highlighted all of them. And then initially I think I elevated them down by like 0.5 or something, but when I initially elevated them down into the ground, there wasn't too much of a dramatic fence around the pool, if you know what I mean. Like, I wanted there to look like there was some sort of trim around the actual pool line itself. And so I actually then went back in, highlighted them again, and then elevated them up by, I think, 0.1. And then that way it kind of acts as some sort of border between the fancy lines in the grass, but then also the pathway that is around the actual swimming pool. I was so happy with this idea, and do you know where it stemmed from? Initially I wanted to use, you know, the Jungle Adventure game pack. We basically got this wall decoration that you can place down onto, well, your Sims walls, but we've got this wall decoration, and I initially had the idea to use that and rotate that and use that as some sort of like trim piece. But I don't know if you would have noticed, when I rotated it, it was one of them objects in the game that just for some reason doesn't rotate. And so then I had the thought of, well, I'll just use the fence piece because it's pretty much the same kind of colour. And yeah, I was just so happy with that idea. And also something that I wanted to mention, when I was doing the pool section, where I was so focused on them live edit pieces and, you know, like no clipping interference and stuff like that, I forgot to add a pool trim. But if you stay until the screenshots, you'll notice I did actually add a pool trim. So there is a lovely, I think it's actually a Jungle Adventure pool trim around the swimming pool. But something else that I wanted to mention, the screenshots that I've taken for this build are probably some of my favourite ever, just because I took them at like different times in the day. So the lighting is just so beautiful, and it's just so perfect. But also another thing before I actually get on and talk about what I'm doing right now is with the actual fence piece around the swimming pool, I was a little bit worried that in terms of gameplay, your Sims wouldn't be able to, you know, manoeuvre freely around the swimming pool, because I didn't know if them fence pieces would actually act like a fence. Yeah, no, your Sims can step over them, absolutely no worries. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next bit of the build, which is the inside of the greenhouse. So, like I already said, this greenhouse is by far one of my favourite greenhouses that I have ever decorated in the game. I'm just obsessed with the way that ended up turning out. I was looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest, which I'll find the picture for you and I'll pop it up on the screen. I basically tried to recreate this. Now, the way that I did it is, you can see I've tried to use some sort of like fence pieces as almost like some sort of like surface table area. These are from the Sims 4 base game. I just sized them down and rotated them 90 degrees, and then I elevated them up into basically the air, and then I got some little like fence posts and then put it underneath them to kind of act as some sort of like support beam kind of area. But then on the actual like fence surface, if you want to put it that way, I placed down these like little, I don't know the terminology for them, but they're basically like little plants that are yet to be planted in kind of like a cardboardy kind of box material. You can see I placed down some smaller variants of it and then also some larger variants. But then over here, do you know what, it sounds so silly, but I'm so proud of this. Basically, next to the sink area, I really wanted there to be some sort of little crate holding multiple different seed packets, because in my mind I was thinking, you've got a greenhouse, you're probably into gardening. I like the idea for you to have kind of like a library of different seed packets for different things that over time your Sims might want to plant. But I tried to find like a little crate or a little basket in the game to kind of merge in these seed packets with, and just none of them were working. Initially I placed down this, it's almost like a little like rattan basket thing. We got it from Dream Home Decorator, and I initially placed it down and put the seed packets in it, but it was winding me up that I could see the fabric through it. And so I thought, do you know what, I'm just going to make one myself. And so what I did is I went into the debug menu and I found this wooden plank, which is just from base game. I sized it down and I placed down multiple in kind of like different directions as a crate would kind of have. But once I placed down like the first load on kind of like the surface area, if you want to put it that way, I then got the same plank and then rotated it so it was kind of like standing upright, and then basically tried to act like some sort of, I don't know what the terminology, like border, fence area to kind of make sure the seed packets don't fall out. I'm not even too sure how to explain it, but I basically duplicated what I did and then just raised it up, and yeah, I just basically made a little crate using this one base game debug wooden plank. If you're curious, I'm pretty sure in the game it's called like wood plank Gen 01 or something, because I've used this wooden plank in multiple different builds for various different things, because honestly just having a plain wooden plank is so handy, especially for little things like this. But yeah, I basically just use the tool mod to help rotate and scale things down, and just using the same thing over and over again, I just manipulated the object multiple different times, and then I had made a little crate. Sounds so silly, but I was so happy with it. But then once I did the actual crate itself, I then got the seed packets that, like I said, I initially tried to put into some Dream Home Decorator like little baskets. I'd already rotated them to be standing upright. I then plonked them back into the little crate that I just made, and then I rotated them backwards by, I think, like 5 degrees or 10 degrees or something, to make it look like they're kind of like leaning. And I don't know, I just thought it was a little bit more realistic. But I'm just so happy with this greenhouse, and also the little crate in particular. I was just so proud of that idea. But also in this greenhouse, on that like wall, that little section, a lot of that is just purely for decoration. I did place down some houseplants that we got from the Enchanted By Nature expansion pack, but I placed them down knowing that they weren't going to be functional. I must admit, I didn't even play test them, because I placed them down onto the fake like wooden surface that I used a fence piece to kind of create. So I just knew that they weren't going to be functional. But in the greenhouse there is some sort of functionality. We end up having some leaning planters on the wall, the ones that you can kind of have multiple different planters growing in. I think they're called vertical planters. In there, I've already come into the game and I placed down, I think, basil, spinach, parsley, and some other sort of herb, but I placed them down into there. And then I also have the little circle ones in the bottom. In there I placed down carrots, tomatoes and potatoes, and then in the big one, like the big square one, I placed down strawberries and raspberries. I'm only mentioning this because when I was playtesting and I was making sure, everything was functional, I was thinking, well, we're in Henford-on-Bagley, this is meant to be England, what kind of, fruit and vegetables grow in England? Strawberries do, raspberries do, I think, anyway, and I know carrots and potatoes do. And so I have already pre-planted them. But of course, if you download this build off the gallery, you can definitely just delete them and replace them with something else. I'm also placed down things into planters when you download it, so I can playtest the functionality of it. But either way, moving over, as you can see, finished up the greenhouse, and now I've finally moved on into the inside. I'm currently coming in and decorating the entrance hallway. Now, even though this is pretty much just somewhere that your Sims would kind of maneuver through to get from room to room, I'm still just so happy with just like how this entrance ended up turning out. It is just so, in my opinion, classic British countryside kind of decoration. So in here, I went for this fireplace that we got from the Cottage Living expansion pack. Initially, I had one that we have from the Adventure Awaits expansion pack, because on the exterior, I use the Adventure Awaits brick, and so I kind of wanted to follow through with the same, just be a little bit more consistent. But then when I actually moved in and I started decorating, I didn't really love the colour swatches on that Adventure Awaits expansion pack like fireplace. I do end up using it in the build, but it's upstairs in one of the bedrooms, and I actually love the way I end up using it. I placed down some like fairy lights hanging off it, and I placed down a mirror. It's just, it's so beautiful. But in the end, I placed down, this Cottage Living fireplace. But then I thought back to a previous build that I did, again in the world of Henford-on-Bagley. It was last Christmas. I don't know if you would have seen it, but I tried to recreate, the film The Holiday with Kate Winslet, Jude Law, Cameron Diaz, Jack Black, and I think a few other like reputable like celebrities basically. But there is this Christmas film, and it is one of my all-time favourites. I watch it every single year. And basically last Christmas, I decided to basically recreate the English country cottage in that film in the game. And when I was doing that recreation, I basically went through, rewatched the film like a load of times, and took so many different pictures, like every single centimetre of that build, so I could try and recreate it as perfectly as possible. But I noticed in the house, in the holiday, like the little cottage, they have this really big chimney, or like this really big fireplace, but the chimney is really wide and it takes up a good portion of the room. And so in my recreation last year, basically what I did is I got this exact same fireplace, the one that I've used in here from Cottage Living, and I placed it down to the wall. But then I went into the live edit menu and I found this like live edit wall, which is from the My Wedding Stories game pack, and I basically merged in to make it look like the chimney breast for the fireplace was a little bit bigger. And I just loved it so much. But when I came in and I started decorating this hallway, I placed down the same fireplace, and then my mind went to, well, just do the same thing that you did in the holiday house, because I don't think that you've done it since. And so yeah, that is pretty much what I did. I used the same live edit wall that we got from the My Little Wedding Stories game pack. And if you're curious, the wallpaper that I used behind the fireplace, I know it's not currently on the screen, so it might be a little bit confusing, but even though the live edit wall with that particular stone is from My Wedding Stories, we actually have the exact same wallpaper from the bowling night stuff pack, and so I can kind of like match them, like, so they were just like perfect for each other. And yeah, on the actual fireplace, I ended up placing down some photos of kind of like an older building, some sort of gentleman. Also placed down some like fire sticks, some little candles and stuff. And then on one side of it, I also placed down a little armchair with a nice little pillow, and then also actually something else as well. By the front door, I placed down some green wellies. Do you know how happy I am that we've now finally got wellies in the game? I'm actually not sure if they're called wellies everywhere in the world. I know in Australia they're called gum boots. Don't know what they're called in the US, but you know, Wellington boots, I call them wellies, but we finally got them in the game. We got them from the Grange Mudframe kit, and I haven't used them in a build, I don't think, since that pack has been out. But yeah, I used them actually a ton in this build, and they're just so perfect, like a classic, in my mind, you know, Hunter Wellies, like Hunter Wellies, the brand. I imagine that them Wellington boots by the front door are, yeah, some little green Hunter Wellies. And then I was also thinking, I placed down a little like coat rack with a hat above it. I was thinking it was maybe like a, do you know, a barber jacket? Like a proper, it's like waterproof jacket. I was thinking that the coat was a barber jacket. I mean, obviously it is just like an in-game item that is just, there's no branding, but that was my mind when I was placing them down, just like some little Hunter wellies and then also a barber jacket. It just felt so proper British to me. But either way, as you can see, moving over, I've now started coming in and decorating the little tiny dining room. Now, like I said, in this build, even though I wanted this to be quite a grand English family estate, I just didn't really want there to be multiple different dining rooms. I probably could have made it work if I sacrificed maybe the downstairs bedroom, but I don't know, I just feel like for gameplay sometimes it's just a little bit nicer just to have a small little room for your Sims to sometimes come in here and actually eat their dinner. I must admit, half the time my Sim actually just eats standing up, like just holding the plate, but it's always nice to have the idea in your mind that your Sims actually sit around the table and, you know, eat their dinner with the rest of their family. I decided to go for the laundry day round table, and then I also placed down some chairs that we got from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. And then at one point I tried to make it look like it was going to be some really nice big fancy mirror on the wall, which sounds weird because I just placed down a painting and rotated it, but basically this one painting that we got from the Vampires game pack, I've done it a few times in a few different builds, but basically sometimes I like to merge in a mirror in between the paintings, so you have like the nice fancy frame of the painting, but then instead of the actual painting picture you have the mirror, and it's fully functional, but I just didn't really like the way that it was going, and so yeah, I did decide to remove it. But something that I also wanted to mention, because I just noticed it, in every single room in this build, I made sure that there is at least one radiator, because, you know, we're in England, by the way, and you need them because it's cold here, but I made sure that there was a radiator in every single room, alongside with light switches, and then also plug sockets. Will say the one thing that I was kind of gritting my teeth over is the plug sockets that I placed down into this build, which when I place them down next, I'll point them out, because we don't technically have plug sockets in the game, they're just attached to a certain light and you can rotate it. I'll explain it when I do it next, but basically the plug sockets that are in every single room, even though I'm building an English house, I was gritting my teeth because the plug sockets are actually the US plug sockets, but beggars can't be choosers. We don't have any other version of them in the game, and so I really hope you don't mind that I've got US plug sockets in a English family estate. But yeah, like I said, we don't actually have any plug sockets in the game. We don't really have them at all, but there is just this one particular light that we got from the Parenthood game pack. Like I said, I'll point it out next time I do it, but basically if you rotate it, there is for some reason a plug socket attached to the back of it, and so I basically did that in every single room. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the kitchen. So in here, like I said, this is my dream kitchen. I'm just absolutely obsessed with everything about it. The kitchen layout, the counters, the fridge in the middle, the colour of these kitchen counters. Like I said, I tried to have like a sage green and cream kitchen. These kitchen counters, I must admit, I hold my hands up, they're not exactly sage green, but we don't have really sage green options in the game other than this one kitchen counter, which is from the Dream Home Decorator game pack. There is a sage green option on that counter, but the actual counter piece itself is very modern. Didn't want to go down that kind of route. I wanted it to be, you know, traditional, classic British, and so I decided to use these ones, which are from the Vampires game pack. Weirdly enough, love these counters. It comes in 3 swatches, which is really minimal. I don't know why these counters only have 3 swatches of them, but there is a black and white version, love that version. There is the green and cream version, the one that I've used in here, and then there is also the default version, which you see in the build and buy category, which I don't think I've ever used, but it's kind of like a reddy brown tone with a black marble countertop piece. But yeah, no, this green option, it is just so chef's kiss perfection, my cup of tea. I love it. I just absolutely love it, and it just feels like a proper British kitchen. In here, I'll show you the picture that I was referencing when I was trying to, you know, decorate this kitchen. It had wooden beams in the actual kitchen itself, which I completely spoke over when I was doing it, but in every single room in this house, alongside with radiators, plug sockets, and, you know, light switches, there is also beams hanging from the ceiling, because in a lot of older British houses, people do have, you know, like exposed wooden beams, and a lot of the time they're like period homes that have been around for ages, like they're probably hundreds of years old, and it's just a nice feature and kind of like a nice characteristic to some British houses. And yeah, I wanted to recreate that in this build. And so at the end of every single room, you'll see, or every single like cluster of rooms, I should say, because sometimes I won't do it straight after a room, I'll do it after like the neighbouring rooms are done as well, but I'll come in and I'll make it so they have some wooden beams from the ceiling. Now I will admit, if you're someone that maybe plays in all walls up mode, it might be a bit annoying because you can very visibly see the wooden beams. They're not on every single like tile on the ceiling. I did it so they're kind of like every other tile. You'll see it in a second, but I just wanted it to have character. Do you know what I mean? Like the 2 front doors at the front of the build, it kind of added character. It made it feel like an older home nestled in the English countryside. And again with the beams, it just feels so British. And so yeah, if you're someone that plays in all walls up mode, it might be a little bit annoying, but of course you can always delete them if you don't like them. But if you're someone that plays in half walls up, half walls down mode, like the mode that I'm building in right now, then you'll be fine. You won't even be able to notice them. It's more so for screenshots. I'm a big screenshot player, and so yeah, if your Sims do something in this kitchen, so for example, and you want to take a screenshot, when you do take that screenshot, there will be some lovely beams from the ceiling. But either way, in here, as you can see, I placed down this fridge basically bang centre in the kitchen. This is from the Growing Together expansion pack. I feel like I never used this fridge, but I don't know, it just felt like it went with the kind of like countryside farmhouse aesthetic that I was going for. I then paired it with the oven that we got from the Cottage Living expansion pack, and then I actually did a little sneaky trick because I wanted there to be some sort of like kitchen bar counter area where your Sims of a morning, if they want to, they could eat, you know, their breakfast, their cereal or something. But the way that counters work in The Sims 4, you know, when you want to have like an island and you can have the corner pieces, there is no corner pieces that line up nicely if you wanted to have some sort of overlap where your Sims could sit down. I really hope you're following along with me, but basically what I did, which was, I say it's a sneaky trick, it's not that sneaky, but basically I wanted there to be some sort of area where your Sims could, if they wanted to, have their porridge or have their egg and soldiers or whatever their breakfast choice is. But I wanted it to be in the kitchen as well, just because this kitchen is massive. And so what I did is I just got some kitchen counter bar pieces and I actually just merged them into the regular kitchen counter pieces, because the kitchen counters and the kitchen bar counters are a little bit different, but I merged them in, and then that way it looks like it's all completely seamless and there's no like overlap anywhere. But your Sims can actually sit down at the breakfast counter and eat their breakfast. Now that I'm explaining it out loud, it doesn't sound as sneaky, but it felt a bit sneaky because normally you can't do it in the game. But either way, in here, as you can see, I placed down a little kettle in the corner because, I mean, I can't speak for every household in the UK, but I feel like a lot of us do have kettles in our kitchen. A lot of people, you know, like to make a cup of tea or something. But over here, actually, what I'm doing right now, this is the plug socket situation. So I hope you can kind of follow what I'm doing. But I placed down this one lamp shade, or like wall lamp. We got it from the Parenthood game pack. It's the one that is the smaller one, because there's 2 different variants, but it is the smaller one. You place it down to the wall and basically you size it up by 1.2, and then using the tool mod you can rotate it 180 degrees, and when you rotate it you then use the gravity pull feature from the tool mod, which to use the gravity pull feature, I think you press down, hang on, let me do it, muscle memory. Yeah, you place down Alt and then you like click away from it, and then it basically will pull the plug socket away from the wall. And for some reason, when you pull it away from the wall, you'll notice on the back of it, on the back of that wall light from Parenthood, there is for some reason a plug socket. Like I said, it's not exactly English because it is the US plug socket, but it's good enough for me, and so I place it down into, yeah, pretty much every single room in this build has a plug socket. I say that, some rooms have multiple, and I try to place them down where I feel like electrical outlets would be, because, you know, typically they're placed down near like a computer desk, for example, or maybe like a TV or something like that. But yeah, I place them down into every single build. I did do this ages ago for the first time, but I don't know, I just stopped doing it for some reason. But when I came in and I was decorating this build, I just thought of it, and so yeah, I decided to do it. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the utility room. So in here, like I said, I tried my hand at making like a little custom doggy bath area. Now, I have actually done this before, again, actually previously in a video that wasn't too long ago. It was my huge Tennessee family farmhouse, I believe is what I called it, but I did do it in that build, but I wanted to kind of follow through that idea into this build. What I did, honestly, it's really simple. I literally just got a bathtub in the game, any one you fancy, doesn't really matter, but I placed it down, and then I made a little room and put it so it is on one platform click up. I then scaled the bath down by, I think, like 0.010. It really doesn't matter what you scale the bath down to, it's just how much of the bath that you actually want to see. But I scaled it down to a size where you can't really notice it, but if you zoom in into the dog bath, you can actually visibly see it. And then if you actually click on the bathtub, your Sims can, you know, bath their dog, or their toddler, or their infant, or if you fancy, your Sims can also have a bath in that bathtub. But I don't know, I just feel like we should have dog baths in the game. I'm really surprised that we didn't get them from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, but I mean, you can always make your own, and so yeah, that is exactly what I did. But also wanted to mention that if you're someone that maybe plays with custom content in your game and you want to download this build, you could definitely replace my little like man-made dog bath and replace it with some custom content, because I myself, I'm someone that I've actually got some CC of dog baths in the game, and they're around about the exact same size as the one I've made. So yeah, if you would like to, you can definitely delete that and replace one with some actual proper dog bath CC. But like I said, this is like a no CC build, and I tried my best, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. But either way, in here I will find the picture for the utility room that I was looking at on Pinterest, and I'll pop it off onto the screen. I tried to do a very similar thing with kind of like these two cabinets on the wall with some lights kind of angled down, and then underneath it have some sort of sink area. If you would have noticed, by the way, when I was cluttering up that shelf kind of on the opposite wall above the sink area, I kept on placing down at this bathroom just base game shelf, and then I kept on sizing it down really small. The reason why I kept on doing that, by the way, and I was meant to explain it when I was doing it, but I was just, you know, I was yapping. But basically, I wanted there to be some sort of clutter on the shelf above the sink unit in the utility room, but I didn't want to freely place it using move objects, because the thing is, the location of the utility room and the location of where that wall was, if you was to be someone that plays in half walls up, half walls down mode, when you're in that mode in gameplay, if I would have freely placed down, say for example, some towels or, you know, like laundry detergent on that shelf, and I use move objects to do it, when you're in half walls up, half walls down mode, you can then visibly see it float in. Me personally, it winds me up. And so basically what I did is I just got this base game, yeah, just bathroom shelf. I placed down the cluster objects onto it beforehand. I then sized down the shelf, then that way when you're in all walls up mode, or if you're in like screenshot mode, say for example, there will still be things on the wall as decorations, and that kind of like makes sense. But then if you're someone that plays in, you know, half walls up, half walls down mode, there's no like floating objects that are going to get in your way. Does that make sense? I really hope that makes sense. I just wanted to explain it because there is a lot of thought process that goes into every single centimetre of my builds, and I feel like I say this all the time, but I obviously I build all these things for you to download and play on yourself, but I'm also someone that is also a game player. Like, I also like to play the game myself, and I oftentimes like to play in a lot of my houses, and it just winds me up personally, and so I just try and, you know, avoid things that could be quite aggravating basically in the game. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the living room. So in here I did the exact same thing that I did in the entrance hallway with the Cottage Living fireplace and the live edit wall. I just, instead of having a photo frame of like a building and some sort of like man, I placed down a TV. So in gameplay, if you fancy, instead of having like a picture being displayed, your Sims can, you know, turn it on and watch, whether it be a film, news, sports, whatever you fancy. But something that I did want to mention in this lounge room, and I have actually placed them down in multiple different areas of the build, but you see over here on the mantelpiece, I'm placing down these little photo frames. I'm not sure going forward if I should use these in builds or not, in particular builds like this for my save file, because pretty much these recently were part of a login event in the game. For the past, I'm gonna say like year and a half roughly, the Sims team have been doing this thing where if we've got like a new DLC coming out, they might have this like in-game limited time event where you have to basically do multiple different tasks in the game, which by current record don't take you long at all. Like they literally, recently I did it for the most recent event, it quite literally took me 25 minutes to do the whole entire thing. But it's basically this thing where if you do all these different tasks in the game, as you kind of like progress through all of them, you get all these different rewards. And these photo frames that I placed down onto the fireplace were from these rewards that you got from this like limited time event. I love them because do you know how many different family photos I want to take of my Sims in my save file and pop them onto a mantelpiece? I love them so much. But the thing is, I'm in two minds about it because I'm not sure if, you know, you accessed these photo frames in this limited time event, and the thing is, where it was limited time, you now can't access them if you missed out on that opportunity. It's like, you know, when there's a new expansion pack that comes out and there's kind of like bonus content if you buy the pack within a certain time frame or something like that. It's kind of giving the same energy as that in a way. Don't get me wrong, it's free, so like if you was to do these base game events, it's free stuff, you don't have to spend any money. But I'm just in two minds whether I should use them in future builds or not, because I think they're so great. Because in my mind, I want to, when I actually move a family into this house, my save file, and I take pictures of them, I love the fact that I can just plonk them into a photo place and, you know, Bob's your uncle, we're good, I don't have to do any more faffing. Because you can take photos and place them down onto like surfaces in the game, but the ones that you take in the game already, when you place them down onto, say for example, a fireplace mantelpiece or your Sims bedside table, you can't freely rotate them photo frames, whereas these ones that we got from the limited time event, you can freely rotate them. But the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant to use them in future like save file builds like this one is because I plan to take so many photos of Sims that are going to be living in my save file, you know, them with their family, with their friends, with, you know, their pets and stuff. But I don't want to take pictures of them and put them into these photo frames and say, for example, eventually when my save file comes out, you download my save file, but you didn't have access to them photo frames, you didn't unlock them in the limited time event, and then all of them photos would, you know, not be there, they'd be gone. I just don't know what to do about it. So I think, for starters, if you could let me know if you access them, that'd be great. But then also I think I might in the next few days potentially put a poll on maybe YouTube or maybe Instagram or somewhere and just ask people kind of like, have you got access to these photo frames? Because I mean, so far my save file, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I really want to talk about this bathroom actually, because I love this bathroom, but I've already come in and taken some posed pictures of Sims families, and I've gone in, I've downloaded custom poses and posed some of the family members in my save file, and I've placed them down into houses in my save, and I want to do that for every single household. But the thing is, I don't want to do all of that time and effort because it takes a really long time. I don't want to do all that, and then you download the build, and where you didn't have access to them photo frames, the photo frames and the pictures in them have disappeared. So I'm just a little bit like, I'm in an R on what to do about it. And so yeah, if you could let me know, that'd be amazing. But if you do ever get the chance to actually do these limited time events, honestly, I just recommend that you do them. Like I said, for this time round, the one most recently took me 25 minutes real time, maybe even less than that. I was actually kind of like dragging it out a little bit, but I know that I watched one YouTube video throughout the whole entire duration of actually doing all the different events, because you can do it like weekly, because with like these limited time events there'll be like new tasks every single week. I don't faff with that. I just wait until it's all done and I can just basically do it all in one sitting. And yeah, for this time around. It really didn't take that much time at all. And so if you do have the chance to do them in the future, I highly recommend it, because at the end of the day, it's free stuff. Do you know what I mean? But either way, I completely spoke over the bathroom, which is so annoying because I really wanted to talk about that bathroom because I absolutely loved it. But in there, I don't know if you would have noticed, I used a new bathtub that we got from the Adventure Waits expansion pack, and then I also placed down a rug that we've got from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack. And I think the reason why I love that bathroom so much is because I placed down a bathroom rug, which I typically wouldn't place down into a bathroom. I don't know, I feel like the rug in there is giving dining room, lounge room kind of situation, but I felt like for the bathroom it was just so beautiful and just so fitting. But either way, over here, as you can see, I've now moved on into the first bedroom, and this is the parents' bedroom. I've actually just realised we're like an hour into this video, legitimately, well, 58 minutes if you want to really pick hairs, but we're like an hour into this video, and I haven't even told you how I like formatted the bedrooms in terms of the different family members. But as we're here, if you're curious, so we have one parents' bedroom, which is this one down here. I purposely placed down the parents' bedroom downstairs because I'm thinking if you wanted to play in this house in terms of like family gameplay, running a farm, got horses, stables, all that malarkey, it'd be really handy if the main bedroom was downstairs, because you could literally walk out the door in this bedroom, because there's a door that accesses the front driveway. You could walk out the front door and you're already in the garden. You know, you've already got the cows at your fingertips. You could already just tend the crops without having to walk around the whole entire house. And so yeah, there is a parents' bedroom down here, and then on the upstairs level there is one infant's nursery, one kids' bedroom, one, I was thinking teen boys' bedroom, and then one potentially teen girl or maybe young adult girl bedroom. Still in two minds about it. Not really sure what kind of situation I'm going to go for in terms of my save file, but yeah, that is how the bedrooms are decorated in this build. Also, complete side subject, I'm sorry if you can actually hear my dog snoring. He's been sat behind me this whole entire voiceover, and I think he's now in like a proper deep sleep, and so he's now snoring. So if you can hear that, I'll try and edit it out. I'm going to try and take a picture when I've actually finished this voiceover, so I can kind of give you a visual for what is happening behind me. Don't judge my bed, alright, because it was made and he decided to unmake it because he's a digger. You know, like dogs, that they remember like their heritage and stuff, and like they'll randomly, when they get into bed, they'll try and dig at it. That's him. My bed was made this morning, but if there is a picture on the screen, he unmade it, basically. Oh, did you hear that? Look, I don't want to move him because the thing is, he's very unsettled today because, and this, I will get back to the build in a minute, to be honest, I'm just cluttering a fireplace, but basically my mum and dad are out of town this weekend and I'm looking after him. But the thing is about my dog, and I don't know if you've got dogs, or if they're the same, Velcro dog, and what I mean by that is if I get up, he'll get up. If I go for a wee, he wants to come into the bathroom and also has a wee. If I'm in the bath, he wants to get in the bath. Like, he's that kind of dog. He's very affectionate. I haven't been sleeping the past few days because when he snores, he hogs. Like, he's a small little dog, but he sounds like a pig when he sleeps for some reason. He's always like it. We call him Piggly Wiggly because he just sounds like a pig, just in every day to day. And so, yeah, that was a complete side subject, but I don't want to disturb him because he's proper settled now. And I mean, bless his heart, his mum and dad have gone out of town and he doesn't know what it means. He just thinks that they've left him. And it really hurts my heart. And so, yeah, he's in my room. And so I'm really sorry. I'm going to try my best to try and edit it out. But normally I don't have a small dog behind me when I do voiceovers, but this week is just a little bit different. But either way, as you would have seen, I finished up the downstairs master bedroom and now I've moved on to the upstairs level. So in here, like I said, I wanted there to be a room for an infant. It also ends up being a room for a kid, and then also a teen boy, and then also potentially a teen girl or maybe like a young adult girl. I'm just in two minds about it. But basically for the infant's nursery, it was initially a little bit too small because when I was doing the floor plan, I wanted this to be a small little box room, because I feel like in a lot of British houses there's oftentimes a really small box bedroom. And I mean, growing up, I had the box bedroom when I was a little kid, and I don't know, I just wanted to kind of have a box bedroom in this house to make it feel a little bit more authentic, if you know what I mean. But when I actually came in and I started decorating the infant's nursery, the thing is with infants is you've got to have a crib for them, but then you've also got to have a changing table with like access to a bin for like their dirty nappies. And I could have done it with the original size, but it was just going to be literally just a crib and a changing table in here, and that was pretty much it. And I wanted there to be a little bit more decoration, and so I basically, when I started this room, very quickly decided to pinch some space from the next door's bedroom, which, to be fair, is quite a decent sized room as it goes anyway, so I don't think they're going to be missing that much. But yeah, I kind of extended this room out a little bit, and then that way I could just add a few more different decorations. I was looking at a picture when I was decorating this nursery, which again I found on Pinterest. I will find it for you and I'll pop it up on the screen. It's really difficult though, because with infants nurseries in the game, I feel like we're so limited in terms of how we can decorate them, in terms of like with like paid DLC, not so much custom content, because I feel like nowadays there is so much like infant CC around, but in terms of like in-game DLC, some of the furniture objects that we have are very like colour coordinated. And what I mean by that, you can see in here I went for kind of like a baby blue kind of theme, but there is a baby blue, there is a yellow, I think a pink, and then a few other variations of it with different wood colours, but that is pretty much it. Like, we really don't have that many different baby cribs in the game. We have, I think off memory, like 5 or 6, which you'd think that's probably enough, but half of them I don't actually like, and one of them I've literally never even used in a build before, and so I always find infants nurseries quite difficult to decorate. Really like the way that it ended up turning out, and I mean, I tried to make it feel like the rest of the home was decorated. That was kind of like my approach for all the other bedrooms upstairs, because in my mind I was thinking that the parents probably decorated the base of the room for, you know, all of their children, but it's just like the kids have come in and added in their own decorations, if you're getting my drift. But either way, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next bedroom, which I'm not sure if it should be for a teenager or if it should be for a young adult. Either way, regardless of who it's going to be for, I absolutely love this bedroom. So this is the fireplace that I was speaking about. You know, downstairs I said I do end up using the Adventure Awaits fireplace upstairs, and I have some like hanging lights off it. This is what I was talking about. So I used the Adventure Awaits fireplace, and then I basically got these little string lights, which I think off memory these are from the Sims 4 base game, or potentially they're from the free holiday pack. I'll put a little bit of text on the screen to kind of like correct myself. They might even be from a completely different pack. I'm just kind of assuming. I think they are from base game though. But either way, I got these little like hanging lights, and I basically sized them down a little bit, moved them a little bit closer together, and then using the gravity pull feature from the tool mod, I moved them onto the fireplace mantelpiece. I just thought this was just cute and just such a nice decoration for this fireplace, because the fireplace that we've got from Adventure Awaits, it's lovely. The colour swatches are a little bit hard to use, but the actual like mantle wood piece on the actual fireplace itself, it's so thick and I feel like it's very like jarring in a way, and so adding in these fairy lights kind of like distracts your eyes from how thick it comes out from the actual chimney breast. Hopefully you're following along with me, but yeah, no, I absolutely love it. But in here I placed down this bed that we got from the Horse Ranch expansion pack, and I ended up placing down a little table lamp. I placed down an alarm clock, some flowers, also placed down a radiator, because like I said, there is a radiator in every single room in this house, and sometimes there might be like 2 radiators in a room depending on how big the room is. But yeah, in here I'm in 2 minds of what kind of sim will be sleeping in this bedroom in my save file, because pretty much I initially came in and I was decorating it to be for, I was thinking a young adult that still just lives at home with their parents, but I don't know if I should go down a teen route, and it more so stems from I really need to take a hard look at my save file, in particular in Henford-on-Bagley, and look at all the different townies already in this world, because I've already come in and I've made I say a handful, a ton actually. I've made a fair few different families in the world of Henford-on-Bagley for my save file, but I can't remember if I've got that many teenagers. And the approach that I'm trying to have for my save file is, in every single world I want there to be Sims of all different ages. So, you know, say for example your Sims move to the world of Henford-on-Bagley, I want there to be other teens in this world that your Sims, who are maybe a teen as well, could interact with. I want there to be loads of different kids. I want there to be like toddlers and stuff. And so I'm not sure if I've got any teen girl. I know I've got at least 1 or 2, but I don't know if I need any more. I'm just in 2 minds about it. But either way, I initially kind of decorated this room to be for, yeah, a young adult that just lives at home still with their parents. I feel like that's quite realistic, and it made me really deep it, but I don't really have that many families in many of my worlds. There are actually young adults that still live at home with their parents, but that's what I do. I'm 27. Ugh. I don't like saying that, but I'm 27 and I still live at home with my mum and dad. I love my mum and dad. I don't want to move out yet. Also, in this economy, it's quite hard to do that, but I don't really have that many Sims in my save file that, you know, are young adults or even adults Actually, no, I know I've got a few because one of them is criminal and he's actually quite a naughty boy, but his mum thinks that he's a golden boy. That's besides the point. But I haven't got that many, and so I just need to figure out if I need a teen girl to be in there, or maybe just a young adult that just still, they haven't moved out. Maybe they love their mum and dad and they don't want to move out, and so that could definitely be the case. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on to the next bedroom, which is a kid's bedroom. I absolutely love this kid's bedroom, and I think this is probably one of my favourite kids' bedrooms that I've ever decorated. So for this one, again, I was looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest. I'll find it for you and pop it up onto the screen. I will admit though, it ends up looking absolutely nothing like it, purely because not because of I didn't want to go down that route in the end. I couldn't really make it work in the game because, say for example, the bed in this picture on Pinterest, we don't have that. The little like built-in window piece, we also don't have that. But coming into this room, I wanted to kind of like take the elements of this picture and kind of implement it into this room. And so in the picture on Pinterest, there was this really nice like stripy like window seat. Couldn't do that in the game, and so what I decided to do is I placed down a bookcase on one end. The one that I've used is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, and then I placed down this bed in front of it, which this bed is from Eco Lifestyle, I think, off memory, but I tried to make it look like the bed was a little bit of a window seat. I placed down multiple different pillows and cushions, and then I also placed down a little teddy bear onto it as well, and I was thinking that, yeah, that was like a nice little seating area for the kid of this household. If you're curious, by the way, all the different pillows and like cushions that I placed down onto the bed, it still makes it so your Sims can still get into the bed. I know the way that I've placed them down, it makes it look like your Sims aren't going to be able to, sleep in the bed. But no, like I said, I've placed this whole entire build. The only one issue that I've run into was with like the cow sheds. Well, it was actually just the cow walking into the fence, which was a little bit just not realistic, and so I just moved that over. But everything else, yeah, absolutely works, absolutely fine. But in here, I basically decorated like the little bed area, and then I started incorporating some bits and pieces that we got from the Adventure Awaits expansion pack. In particular, I placed down this standing lamp in the corner. It looks like it's got all these different paddles. When your Sims are like canoeing and stuff, them paddles are kind of attached to the lamp itself. So I placed that down, and I was like, no, actually, I kind of like where this is going, because I feel like with Adventure Awaits, we've got some more like vintagey kind of like decor. So then I placed down these paddles onto the wall, which really kind of like amplified the vintage feel in here. I then also ended up placing down some wall decorations with little flags from Adventure Awaits, and then at one point I had the idea of, I placed down some suitcases as well onto the wall. The little like suitcase shelf decoration, that is from the Growing Together expansion pack, but it feels kind of vintage. Do you know what I mean? So I placed that down, and then I also ended up placing down some things hanging from the ceiling. I also placed down the chest of drawers that we got from Adventure Awaits, and then I also ended up placing down some like paintings of, I think, like canoes and fish and like random little bits and bobs, again from Adventure Awaits, above the little chest of drawers area. But the chest of drawers that I've used is kind of like worn, like it looks like it's been through it a little bit. It's got some stickers on it, but it just really went with the whole like vintage kind of feel of this kid's room. And yeah, I just absolutely love it in here. Very early on into decorating this bedroom, I did place down, like the paper crafting, paper mache and thing that we got from Adventure Awaits. I placed that down onto the computer desk, but then I was thinking for gameplay, there's not really a ton that the kid can do in this room, because it is quite a small bedroom really if you look at it. I mean, to be fair, this kid does have an ensuite bathroom. It's more of like a Jack and Jill bathroom, because both this room and then also the infant's nursery, they both have a door that goes into like a shared bathroom area. So I mean, they do have their own bathroom, but initially I placed down some paper crafting on their computer desk, but then I was thinking for gameplay it might just be a little bit handy if they had some sort of like computer area, and so I decided to swap it out to be for a laptop. But now moving on, as you can see, I've now moved on into the last bedroom of this house, and this is a teenage boy's bedroom. Now for the rest of the bedrooms in this house, I tried to make it quite not generic. I wanted it to feel like English countryside, a little bit rustic, a little bit modern in some areas, dip my toes in a little bit of modern, but I wasn't really building towards particular characters. I'm still yet to kind of figure out the different types of Sims that are going to be living in this house in my save file. However, I knew coming into this build that I wanted there to be a teenage boy's bedroom, because I really want there to be a really rich, quite snobby teen boy in the world of Henford-on-Bagley, and yeah, this is their bedroom. If we had private schools in the game, 100% this teen boy would be attending one of the top leading private schools available to your Sims. I also imagine that if we had like jockey, I think it's called like horse jockey, I don't even know what the proper terminology is. It's quite fancy. I mean, I don't really know too much about it. I've just seen it in The Crown, but I imagine that'll be right up their street. I imagine that this boy, he probably doesn't have to work as hard in school, because I imagine it's a scenario of he knows that one day he's going to inherit quite a lot of money, and so he can kind of do whatever he fancies when it comes around to school. Maybe he's quite a naughty boy, like naughty kid, and he can kind of like muck about when he's in school, and he doesn't really care because, you know, his family have got a ton of money and they can kind of get him out of any kind of situation. But yeah, for this bedroom, I really wanted to go down again, kind of like a vintagey feel, but just make it for a teenage boy. And I must admit, teen boys' rooms are some of the bedrooms I struggle the most with. I don't know if you're the same, but I just feel like I've got a handful of the same bedroom decorations when it comes around to, okay, a teen boy, maybe he's really into music, or maybe he's really into sports, or like, you know, them stereotypical kind of boys' bedrooms. But no, I absolutely love the way that the teen boys' bedroom came out. Like I said, I tried to do it vintage. I tried to make it feel like it was in line with the rest of the house decorations. Like I said, I imagine that the parents of this house, they decorated the main part of their kids' bedrooms. They picked out the furniture, they put the wallpaper down, but in terms of the little like knickknacks and personal decorations, it's more accustomed to the Sims themselves. But either way, as you can see, I've now moved over into the upstairs landing, or the upstairs hallway. So up here I end up placing down another fireplace. There's a lot of fireplaces in this build, and I don't think I placed down a fire alarm, so I'm gonna do that before I pop it onto the gallery. But I placed down a little side table and then also a little plant in the corner. But other than that, I'm gonna run around the build, add in some final wooden beams into the ceiling, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.